Shabbat Shalom, a really warm welcome to all who are here in our synagogue, members of the Stubbings Hirsch clan, and all here to celebrate with Hannah. I invite you to sit down. Those of you who are at home on Zoom, many of you streaming in to be here with us, we welcome you too. Our custom in our synagogue is for our bat mitzvah on her coming of age service to lead much of the prayers as well as read from the Torah. So Hannah will be up here and leading us in prayer. For now, we're at the beginning of the service in our B'nai Mitzvah Siddur on page 3. Some of the paging is a little different, so I hope that you will bear with us as we have different versions of this. But I'm really happy to invite Hannah's parents, John and Nina, to share some words of wisdom after we have sung and offered the prayer of Torah study.
With the light of Torah, and may your ears hear the music of its words, and may the space between each letter of the scrolls bring warmth and comfort to your souls, and may the syllables draw holiness from your heart, and may its holiness be gentle and soothing to you and all God's creatures.
This is an extract from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable.
I'm going to read a poem that's based on Rudyard Kipling's poem If, and it's a slightly different version. If you can keep your head and not lose favour when adolescence makes its grand debut, if you can trust yourself to never waver and always keep an optimistic view, and if you can hold your judgment when they stumble and then watch with loving patience as they rise, and strive always to be forgiving, firm yet humble, and loyal even in the face of lies. If you can always understand the reason, yet never give up looking for the rhyme, and hold your tongue when silence is in season, remembering that all things pass with time. If you can seek and find the strength within you, and neither shrink nor shun the grueling fight, if you can move the mountain or begin to, and never in the darkness lose the light. And if you can lead when your children will not follow, yet follow when you must, where they will lead, and neither lose yourself or wind up hollow, an empty vessel sacrificed to need. If you can do all these things and come out the other side, nor doubt, nor pause, nor lose the will to live. You will fail many times, but with pride, in knowing that you've given all you've got to give.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nina. Who knew you'd get advice, parenting advice at synagogue this morning? Page 5 as we go into Elohai Neshama. Baruch Shema V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Hamchulal B'fi Amo Meshubach Umfa'a B'shon Chasidav V'Avadav B'shvachot U'Vizmorot Nagadelcha V'Namlichecha Malkeinu Yachid Chei HaOlamim Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Mechulal B'Tishbachot.
Yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai. ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ יירם הים מלוא ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ יירם הים Yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai, yama mai 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 mai.
Anim Zamirov Ashiri Merog Ki Elecha Nafshi Ta'arog.
Anim Zamirot Vashiri Merog Ki Elecha Nafshi Ta'arog Nafshi Chemda B'Tzel Yadecha Netat Korasodecha Dabri bichodecha, omer libi el dodecha, yerav nasichi alecha, ki nafshi tarogeh.
Let's stand.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בשירי זמרה.
Baruch Hu on page 8.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Feel free to sit down as we offer the two blessings before the Shema. I'm going to offer just the last line, the Hatima. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzeh Hamorot. We praise you, O God, creator of light. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher B'Amo Yisrael B'Ahava. We praise you, O God, in love you've called your people Israel to serve you. Now I'm asking you to stand again, if you're able, as we go towards our watchword of faith with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please be seated. True and beautiful and good, sound, established and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are the first and you are the last. We have no Redeemer but you. You have redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then, with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you this song. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צו ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו. קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Please stand.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי אגיד תהילתך. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי אגיד תהילתך.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזה ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל.
מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע.
ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו.
כבודו מלא עולם.
ברוך כבודו.
ממקומך מלכנו, תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, הקדוש ברוך הוא. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש.
Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי מקדשי שבי שבת, כולם יספרו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשנו שבת. עמדת ימים, אותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו, מגן ישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלאותיך וטובותיך, שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. Baruch atah Adonai, Oseh HaShalom. Now we will take a moment for silent prayer.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם. הוא עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
So we turn now to our Torah service, Kriyat HaTorah. I'm on page 20. This is the heart of our service. Every week of the Jewish year, we read a portion from the Sefer Torah. 2 weeks of the year, there is a double, but thankfully Hannah did not receive a double. And Hannah will be called up to mark becoming Bat Mitzvah, a Jewish adult amongst her community, ready to chant from, bless the Torah, illuminate its words, and become Bat Mitzvah amongst her family and friends and congregation. Assemble the people. Let's stand. The men, the women, the little ones, the stranger that is within your gates, that they may hear and that they may learn and revere the eternal God and observe and do all the words of Torah. Ki
mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai mirushalayim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, u'meramama Shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagdula v'hagvura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. Kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'hamitnaseh lechol l'rosh.
I'm going to swap over modern technology for ancient learning. So let's sit down. We as a congregation couldn't be prouder, more delighted to be calling up our Bat Mitzvah this morning, not least as her own mother was raised here in the synagogue. Ta'amad, Bat Mitzvah, Hannah Bat Nina, Likrat HaTorah.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you all for coming to my Bar Mitzvah here in my synagogue. I am so happy to have all my family and friends here after such a strange year. I'm one of the lucky ones who get to have all of you here with me. My mum and aunt also came to FPS as children. So I'm following in their footsteps, and then of course after Maya, who had her bar mitzvah here 3 years ago. Today I will be reading from Genesis, and I'm lucky to have a well-known story of Noah and the ark. My piece takes place after the flood has happened, which is interesting because most people don't know so much about the end of the flood. God remembered Noah and all the animals in the ark and caused a wind to sweep over the earth to dry the water from the land. This did not happen overnight. It took 150 days just for the water to go down. And then after that, another 40 days are mentioned. Then Noah tests whether they can leave the ark. First he sends a raven. Then he sends a dove who comes back because the Torah tells there was no dry place for her to put her foot down. After another 7 days, he sends her out again, and she returns with an olive branch in her mouth. And Noah waits for another 7 days, and he sends her out again, and this time she doesn't come back. So Noah knew that the waters had dried and they could leave the ark. And then God tells Noah to leave the ark with his wife, his sons, and their wives. The bit that I really love about this story is when the dove returns with the olive branch, which is obviously symbolic of peace. And still around the world, the symbol of the dove and the olive branch remain a sign for peace. The symbol of the dove means a lot to me now in the 21st century, as there is still so much conflict, violence, and hate in the world, even thousands of years since those days. Because the ancient dove, with its olive branch, still represents hopes for reconciliation and peace. I think the story is also still important today because it shows the consequences of human action and the effect these have on the world. Here I am referring, of course, to the environment and climate change. The Torah suggests that it was people's behaviour that led to the flood, and campaigners now warn of the consequences of people who aren't accountable for their behaviour and think that they are not individually responsible for what happens to the earth. Like Greta Thunberg once said, "I have learned you are never too small to make a difference." I think it also teaches us to preserve nature and look after the environment, more specifically animals. In my Hebrew lessons with John, apparently I asked too many questions about the technical issues of the ark. But that was because it was not realistic. How did penguins survive in the climate of the ark? How did they stop the animals from eating each other? And how did they round up all those teeny tiny insects? John told me to not take the story so literally, and eventually we came to the conclusion that the ark was like the tents from Harry Potter, or like the TARDIS, which if you don't know what that means, then both of these looked regular on the outside, but ginormous on the inside. Today I am reading from the Czech scrolls. These scrolls are very special and have a story behind them. After the Holocaust, Englishman Ralph Yablon discovered there were 1,564 Torah scrolls stashed away in a warehouse in Prague, and he decided to buy them and bring them to Westminster Synagogue, who then repaired them and created a museum for them. Now many synagogues around the world have a Czech scroll on loan, and FPS is lucky enough to have 3 of them. We B'nai Mitzvah have chosen to read from one of the scrolls to honour and remember the communities that were murdered. My Bat Mitzvah means a lot to me. I have been a member of FPS since I was 6 and have known my Ivria friends since then. My Bat Mitzvah is also a way to connect to my Judaism, and I am also following in my sister's footsteps and feel proud that I'm the youngest person in my family to have a Bat Mitzvah. It was a lot of work and a bit of stress because there was a lot to learn, but I feel so lucky and grateful because I know there are so many Jewish women and girls out there that don't even get to have Bat Mitzvahs or read the Torah. My teacher John has made this experience amazing, and he is probably the best teacher out there. My Bar Mitzvah is also important because it means I am becoming an official Jewish adult, and I hope that in the future I don't lose my connection to Judaism or forget about the memories I have here in this community. For my Tzedakah project, I have decided to pick up on the environmental theme, and just like Noah had to wait for the dove to come back for the land to be ready for people, I'm going to plant bulbs in the synagogue garden, and 6 months later the bulbs will come up for all our congregation to admire and bring some beauty to the synagogue garden.
Yeshakova. Beautiful, Hannah. Let's move this now so that everything is ready for you. So a reminder that Josie in our synagogue, makes for you small Torah scrolls that honor our B'nai Mitzvah. You can see things they're interested in on the back, where Josie captures the personality of all of our young people. So you can follow Hannah's reading, both from the Torah and the Haftarah. So Hannah, if I give you this, let's just make sure that we're in the right spot. And then...
Let's just go over.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר ברכה בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. ויזכור אלוהים את נוח ואת כל החיה ואת כל הבהמה אשר איתו בתיבה. ויעבר אלוהים רוח על הארץ וישוקו המים. ויסחרו מעיינות תהום וערובות השמיים ויקלה הגשם מן השמיים. וישובו המים מעל הארץ הלוך ושוב ויסחרו המים מקצה 50 ו100 יום. ותנח התיבה בחודש השביעי ב17 יום לחודש על הרי עררת. והמים היו הלוך וחסור עד החודש העשירי. בעשירי באחד לחודש נראו ראשי הערים. ויהי מקץ 40 יום ויפתח נוח את חלון התיבה אשר עשה. וישלח את העורב ויצא יצוא ושוב עד יבושת המים מעל הארץ. וישלח את היונה מאיתו לראות הכלו המים מעל פני האדמה. ולא מצא היונה מנוע לכף רגלה. ותשוב אליו אל התיבה כי מים על פני כל הארץ. וישלח ידו ויקחך ויעבר אותה אליו אל התיבה. ויחל עוד 7 ימים אחרים ויוסף שלח את היונה מן התיבה. ותבוא אליו היונה לעת ערב והנה עלי זית טרף בפיה. וידע נוח כי כלו המים מעל הארץ. ויחל עוד 7 ימים אחרים וישלח את היונה ולא יספה שוב לעבוד. ויהי ב600 שנה בראשון ב1 לחודש חרבו המים מעל הארץ. ויעשה נוח את מכסה התיבה והנה חרבו פני האדמה. ובחודש השני ב27 יום לחודש יבשה על הארץ. וידבר אלוהים על נוח לאמור, זה מן התיבה אתה ואשתך ובניך ונשי בניך איתך, כל החיה אשר איתך מכל בשר, בעוף ובפמה ובכל הרומס על הארץ היוצא איתך, ושצו בארץ ופרו ורבו על הארץ. ויצא נוח ובניו ואשתו ונשי בניו איתו, כל החיה, כל הרמס וכל העוף, כל רומס על הארץ, למשפחותיכם יצאו מן התיבה. And God remembered Noah, and all the animals and all the beasts that were with him in the ark. So God caused a wind to sweep over the earth, and the waters started to subside. And the springs of the deep were dammed up, and the windows of the heavens as well, and the rain stopped. And the waters receded from the land, ebbing and flowing continuously. And by the end of 150 days, the floodwater had come down considerably. After 150 days, the ark came to rest on the 17th day of the 7th month on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to ebb, so that on the first day of the 10th month the mountaintops appeared. And after another 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark. Then he sent out a raven, and it went flying around to find dry land. After that, he sent out the dove to see whether the waters had subsided from the face of the earth. But the dove found no resting place, and she returned to the ark because the waters covered the whole earth. And he reached out and took her and brought her back into the ark. Then he waited for another 7 days and sent out the dove from the ark once more. And the dove came back towards the evening, and hey, a freshly plucked olive branch in her beak. So Noah knew that the waters had mostly subsided. And he waited another 7 days and sent out the dove again, but this time she didn't return. And on the first day of the first month of the year 601, since creation, the waters dried from the land, and Noah opened up the ark to the sky, and lo and behold, the surface of the earth was mostly dry. And on the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth had completely dried. And God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out all the species of animal, all fowl and cattle, and every crawling thing that crawls on the earth, and let them swarm everywhere and multiply." So Noah came out of the ark, together with his wife, his sons, and his sons' wives, as did every animal, every creeping thing, and every bird. In fact, everything that stirs on earth came out of the ark by families. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
So I'm going to ask us to stand for the raising of the scroll. Grandpa Ronnie will be doing that for us as Hannah points out what she read from. So get ready to see the extraordinary feat of her Torah reading. Hold on one sec. Let's just let Hannah out.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah.
down. On the back of your Torah scroll flyer is the piece from Haftarah, from the prophets, of which Hannah will be chanting for us again. Some of you have been given a small amount of chocolates holding in your hand, but probably your excitement and joy of all that Hannah did, let's hope they're still whole. But as Hannah finishes her final blessing, we are able to shower her with sweets. But there are a few house stage management rules. Just no overarm bowling. Just make it as gentle as possible over to Hannah. And we will pick up the sweets at the end of the service. So we'll just keep going with the service. We'll kick them to the side, and then you are absolutely free at the end of the service, anyone, child or adult, to come and harvest the sweets here. So you have your flyer, and you've got the piece from the prophet Isaiah.
My Haftarah is from the prophet Isaiah. It's chosen for this Shabbat because it... My Haftarah is from the prophet Isaiah. It's chosen for this Shabbat because it references the one moment in biblical history God deserted the people during the flood. Isaiah tells us the people, Israel, is loved again, and God will never let the waters of Noah flood the world again. This is a good and a hopeful promise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher batorah ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. ואני יקרה לא ילדה, פצחי רינה וצחלי לא חלה, כי רבים בני שוממה, מבני גאולה אמר אדוני. הרחיבי מקום אוהלך, ויריות משכנותייך, יצאו אל תחזוכי, העריכי מטרייך, ותרותייך חזקי. כי ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, וזרעך גורים יירש, וערים נשמו יושיבו. אל תראי כי לא תבושי, ואל תקלמי כי לא תחפרי, כי בושת אלומייך תשכחי, וחרפת אלמנותייך לא תזכרי עוד. כי יבוא עלייך עושייך, אדוני צבאות שמו, וגואלך קדוש ישראל, אלוהי כל הארץ יקרא. כי כאישה עזובה ועצובת רוח קרח אדוני, ואשת נעורים כי תימאס אמר אלוהיך. ברגע קטון עזבתיך, וברחמים גדולים אקבצך, בשצף קצף הסתרתי פני רגע ממך, ובחסד עולם ריחמתיך, אמר גואלך אדוני. כי מנוח זאת לי אשר נשבעתי, מאבוא מנוח עוד על הארץ, כן נשבעתי מכסוף עלייך ומגרבך. כי ההרים ימושו, והגבעות תמותנה, וחסדי מאיתך לא ימוש, וברית שלומי לא תמות. אמר מרחמך אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, זוג כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, העומד ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
This was the moment. Okay, we'll let Ernie be the one who can pick one up. So, friends, I would like to ask us to stand now as the readers of our community blessings. 2 grandmothers, 1 sister comes forward, ready to read. We're on page 23. The 3 of you can come up now. Okay, an over-enthusiastic mother, we like those at a bat mitzvah. Go ahead.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth, and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Amen.
Amen.
May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, excuse me, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and to do your will. May the one who blessed our ancestors Bless this holy community with all holy communities. May the Holy One grant blessing and success in all the work of their hands, with all Israel, their brothers and sisters. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with a faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Amen.
Amen.
And we have something special before we're putting the Torah scrolls away. So I invite everyone except Paula and Anne to go back down. Is that all right? Just one more moment. So feel free to sit down for a moment. Just before we go into the Bat Mitzvah prayer and into just reflecting on what Hannah has done. Hannah, that John and I joke, her Hebrew, many of you will have realized how beautiful it is, but she speaks with John's Jerusalem accent. That is the kind of pupil student she was, and that is the kind of teacher that John was. Last night, Hannah, after you shared your Devar Torah, I remembered the cartoon, the Far Side cartoon of the lion going up to Noah, looking very embarrassed and saying, "We're going to need to get another gazelle." That is definitely what happened on the ark. I know that I am speaking for all of us here of the meaningfulness of a young woman still holding on to and picking out the symbol of peace from the Torah reading today, and identifying that that symbol of peace of the olive branch has been there since the beginning of Torah, all these generations later. And I think to watch you, Hannah, to listen to you pick that out as something that is meaningful and something to work towards, and that somehow we as humanity, as people, as a congregation, as families, never let that go. This summer I read the most extraordinary book, A Paragon, where I read the anecdote of Yasser Arafat going to the United Nations General Assembly in 1974, the man that was to receive the Nobel Peace Prize along with Yitzhak Rabin. And he arrived and he said, and Hannah, I just thought of you so much rereading it this weekend, that he said, "I hold a rifle in one hand and I hold the olive branch in the other." The olive branch that you have spoken about, Hannah. And he said to the whole of the United Nations, "Don't let me drop the olive branch." And I think you, Hannah, have captured that all of us, all people, whether young children, as you quoted Greta Thunberg, all of us need that sense that we're all in the world to do the best that we can and to bring about the greatest ease and peace for each other. So I think for all of us who now see olive trees and olives growing, we will always be reminded of Hannah drawing that out from this story, that it is still a symbol of peace. And you have brought so much to us today. We always talk about the longevity of synagogue relationships, of your parents choosing to raise Nina and Tanya here in this synagogue, and you now following Maya and Ernie and Clementine here sitting behind you as part of the family. And we hope so much that Finchley Progressive Synagogue continues to be this place within your family network as you are within our congregation. So Hannah, you gave us the idea of this sense of that after every degree of flood, of destruction, you read it in your Torah when you reminded us of the rainbow as the symbol of peace coming after, the symbol of promise coming after the olive. You read it in your Haftarah when the prophet Isaiah said, "Times will be better." So we wanted to echo what you taught us, and I'd like you to bring your family up now.
Jewish heritage and promise to go on studying it in the years ahead. So may I come to understand ever more deeply and carry out more fully the duties that flow from it. I think of all those who in past ages have preserved the Jewish faith and declared their loyalty to it, as I do today. I thank my parents and my family, my teachers and my friends, and all who have helped me to reach this day. And I pray to God, guide me and keep me strong, so that I may fulfill the high hopes that rest on me.
Amen. And in our synagogue, we love to pass the scroll from one parent, and if there has been a older sibling, the Torah scroll will come through them as well and be passed to Hannah to hold the scroll that she read from as she receives a blessing from the congregation. And as we do so, we sing with Dean the Shehechianu blessing, the blessing that allows us to mark having reached this moment, having been kept alive, upright, and able to arrive. Bat Mitzvah. Nishaber Havotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. Hu yavarech et Bat Mitzvah Hannah Bat Nina she'alta l'Torah. May Hannah continue to study our heritage, to take its teachings to heart, to pass it on to future generations, which of course means we hope you might be a teacher here, so that you, Hannah, having reached the age of Bat Mitzvah, come up to chant from the Torah, from the Haftorah, to illuminate its words, to share with us your learning, and to continue to be a source of pride to your family, your friends, and a worthy member of this, our congregation. And let us all say, Amen.
Simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, Yelanu. Simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, mazal tov, simman tov, Yelanu.
As we prepare to close our service, we're on page 29. Aleinu, the prayer that we offer at the end of our service, with the hope that the world continues to get better, kinder, more just, and we are part of doing that.
Aleinu l'shabeach adon hakol, v'ateker l'aleinu
We now move to the Kaddish and to think of those who are no longer with us. In our congregation this Shabbat, we think of the death of Doris Leibovitz, mother of David Leibovitz, grandmother of Ben, Jonty and Gideon Leibovitz, Zichrona Livracha. Also the yard sites that fall at this time of Harry Orme, father of Corin Oppenheimer, and of Morris Papworth, father of Sarah Dibb. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may those who recall and remember their loved ones be comforted in their loss, as we say the words of the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, B'yama divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'hayachon v'yomechon v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Magala v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavorach le'olam Omer Maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitada v'yitale v'talal Shmei Kedusha brichu, Leila min kol birchasha v'shirata, tushbahata v'nechemata, da'amiram b'yama v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabba min Shamaya, v'hayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yal kol b'nei Adam, v'imru, Amen. Let's sit down. So while Josie comes up for a few announcements and a last word to Hannah, I think it looks like Graham and Alex are handing out wine to you. Our Kiddush here in the sanctuary today will be taking place outside. So I invite you all to leave the sanctuary to go outside. Nina, am I right? Outside to the car park, not to the sukkah. Outside to the car park through the small hall. And for those of us online, we'll still offer Kiddush together.
Thank you, Rebecca. My goodness, it's a long time since I've stood up here for this very delightful role. Having spent the best part of the last 19 months in a little box on screen during Shabbat telling folk to kindly mute themselves. So Shabbat Shalom to you all here in the building, on Zoom, and all the folk on social media sites who've logged into this lovely Bat Mitzvah service. Hannah's parents, John and Nina, along with Hannah's grandparents, Ruth, Ronnie and Margaret, you must be so proud of this young woman. Her erudite devar indicated her clear understanding of this well-known story from the Torah, and her Hebrew chanting has been a dream to listen to. John is so sorry to, quote, lose, unquote, this particular student whose Hebrew emulates his own mother tongue. Well done, Hannah. You know, I knew your mum when she was a few years younger than you are now. She was a brilliant patrol leader in my guide company, and our long friendship makes it so special that I'm here today to ask you to come back up to the bimah to receive your Bat Mitzvah certificate, confirming that the girl done good. Come on. On the top of the certificate, you can see it says, I have given you a good thing. Do not forsake it. In fact, Hannah, this morning, you gave us, your FPS community, a good thing. And the promise of those bulbs bearing flowers next spring is something we can look forward to. Thank you. I'm not allowed to kiss you. A few community announcements, please bear with me. On Wednesday this week at 6 o'clock in the evening, not the morning, Rabbi Rebecca will be hosting an adult B'nai Mitzvah taster session. If you were envious of our amazing adult B'nai Mitzvah class this year, come to this taster session to see if you could emulate them. So many of today's adults in liberal Judaism missed out on this important life cycle event, and here's the opportunity to learn and celebrate with others. Check out the weekly email for the Zoom login. And later on that evening, there is the opportunity to join the first of Liberal Judaism lectures entitled Forgotten Lives. In partnership with other LJ synagogues, Liberal Judaism is proud to present this online course exploring the many different contributions that Jewish women have made through the ages. The sessions are designed to stand alone, so you can attend as many evenings as you'd like, all completely free. No advanced reading or preparation required, and registrants will receive the Zoom link and access to session recordings. All sessions are held on Zoom on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Again, check out the weekly email on our Facebook page. And Paul, I can see you've put the PDF information page up on the screen for our Zoomies. Brilliant, well done. More people are beginning to come into the building for services. And if you sign up for the service on Friday night on the 22nd of October, you'll also have the opportunity to sign up for the community Friday night dinner, which will follow the service. This one won't be a barbecue in the car park. The weather probably won't enable that. Obviously, this one will be restricted in numbers, so put your fingers to the keyboard as soon as possible. And a reminder that our synagogue is at the forefront in Barnet of offering local assistance for the desperate plight of the Afghan refugees who fled their homeland with only the clothes they were standing up in. We're putting out a call for winter coats and jackets for adults and children when they've completed their COVID-enforced stay in hotels. Please bring them here. After the hotel, where do they go? If any of you watching this service or here today know of someone who might have an apartment to rent, please ask them to get in touch with us. And finally, to David and Michael on our tech desk, Alex and Graham, our welcomers, and Paul and Bobby hosting on Zoom, to Rabbi Rebecca, our musicians, and all of you supporting Hannah and her family, a big thank you to you all. Could I please ask that at the end of the service, you return your prayer books to Alex and Graham at the desk in the corridor, but do take out the Torah scroll first and take it home with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josie. And just a reminder, Hannah, that you get as a gift from the synagogue and from Liberal Judaism a voucher towards Israel Tour that I hope will be back in business by the time you go to Israel in the way that unfortunately Maya wasn't able to through COVID. So we look forward to sending you on that. We now finish with Adon Olam before we stand up for Kiddush.
Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem kol yitzir nivra. Adon Olam, Nitnasa, V'chitzo kol, Azay melech shemo nikra. Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem kol yitzir nivra. Nitnasa, V'chitzo kol, Azay melech shemo nikra. Adon Olam, V'acharei kichlot hakol, levado imlok nora. Adon Olam, v'hu haya, v'hu hoveh, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara. Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, b'terem kol yitzir nivra. V'yetnasa, v'chitzo kol, azay melech shemo nikra. Adon Olam, והוא אחד ואין שני, לעם שלו להחמירה. אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. אדון עולם, אדון עולם, השם עליו, בטרם כל יציר נברא, להתנסה וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. אדון עולם, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצוחק לי בעת צרה. אדון עולם, והוא ניסי, ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. אדון עולם, אדון עולם, השם מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, להתנסה אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו הפקיד רוחי, והייתי שם בעירה אדון עולם, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא ירא אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר עולם, בטרם כל יצא נברא לעת נשא, וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
Let's stand. Final blessing for all of us for the challenge that Hannah set us for our work in the environment, around peace, around making the world a better place, and being reminded that it is never too little or too small for each one of us. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yavarech et amo v'shalom. Eternal God, grant strength to your people. Eternal God, bless your people with peace. So we'll go straight into Kiddush, Vashamru over there. Hannah, you want to do Hamotzi as you did it so beautifully yesterday? You can rest all your cups on the bima. Nasiya Tova.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. אמן. לחיים.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Now you're free. You've done it all today. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to those of you at home. Shabbat Shalom to those of you here. And I think you are going to be guided out now. If Maya, you open those doors. Chocolates, yes, of course, of course. John, can you tell me whether I've given the wrong information? Are the teachers